Welcome, Rich Hoyer.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Can you tell our audience a little bit about where you grew up and what family life was like for you?
I grew up in Corvallis, Oregon mostly, and Benton County. Lived right in Corvallis near the OSU campus for some years, and then elsewhere in Corvallis, and also out in the country in North Albany. And I have 5 siblings, 1 younger brother and 1 older sister, and I are more like the similar in age, and then I have 3 much older siblings who didn't live with us for most of my childhood. They were already much older.
Oh, they already fledged.
Yeah. So my mom grew up very rural in Western Oregon, the coast mostly. My dad was born in Oakland, California, but lived much of his childhood also in the Corvallis area. And he went to Corvallis High School. My mom went to North Bend High School. And my dad's grandmother even went to Corvallis High School. And both of his parents went to Oregon State. My dad went to Oregon State, and I went to Oregon State. My dad's passions were playing with animals when he was a kid. He got a degree in fisheries and wildlife at Oregon State, and one of his passions was studying the ecology of the rubber boa. It became his major hobby. Well, my dad had these live traps whenever we went camping, and we would put them out in the evening before and put a few oats in them, just all around the campground and along the creek down behind our campsite, and then we'd check them in the morning to see what kind of critters we got.
Cool. And
there'd be various kinds of deer mice or chipmunks and other cool stuff, and he'd bring them out, we'd see what they are, and we'd let them go. And we had a butterfly net we could catch them with. And one particular summer, I remember there being a huge eruption of kangaroo rats. And we went out at night, and my dad would drive the van. So this was definitely before I was a birder. This was, I would have been 11 or 12. And I think we caught over 90 kangaroo rats that night in, I think it was northwestern Malheur County. And yeah, we just put the net over them. You take them out of the net, you could hold them. I don't know if you've ever done that before.
No.
Kangaroo rats, they'll run away from you as you're running down, along the side of the road or in the brush. But once you have them in your hand, they stop being afraid. They'll just sit on your hand. They'll walk up your arm, sit on your shoulder. Yeah, they just have this weird. My younger brother and I found a big moth, and we got a paper grocery bag to put it in. And we said, we take this to Dad, he'll help us figure out what it is. And when we brought it to Dad's, it had laid eggs all over on the inside of the paper bag. He didn't know what it was, he said, but we can find out. We all went over to Cordley Hall at Oregon State University campus, went to the entomology department, knocked on the door and asked them, what is this? And what do they feed on? It was a Cecropia moth.
Wow.
And we went and got some.
That was your eye naturalist.
That was, yeah. My dad reared several caterpillars all the way through to terraform cocoons, and then emerged as adult moths. And that's when I started finding caterpillars out in the yard, in the woods, and taking them home and rearing them through. And I discovered what painted lady butterflies were, and that their caterpillars eat thistle. It's one of their favorite plants. They apparently eat a lot more than that, but I just found these caterpillars on a thistle, and they became painted ladies in my bedroom.
That's one way to find out.
Yeah, I remember getting an inchworm, and it turned into those flat sort of moths that I now know as all geometrics. Yeah, I was destined to become an entomologist before I was interested in birds.
Interesting.
When I was 14, we moved to Northern California, and on the day we moved into our house in a small town in Lake County called Lucerne, there was this little gray bird with a crest, completely solid gray, no field marks at all, on our deck railing. And my mom called us over and said, hey, come look at this bird. I've never seen this before. I have no idea what it is. Of course, I thought Mom knew everything.
Yeah, right.
So I actually got that Reader's Digest book to North American Wildlife and found an entry that looked similar, tufted titmouse. But in the text it mentioned plain titmouse in the West, and that was my first bird that I identified
That's
as
the
plain
very first
titmouse.
one.
Yeah,
That was your spark bird.
that was my spark bird, or at least it was the hook
Right.
that I bit. But then the next day, I borrowed my stepdad's binoculars. I didn't even know he had any. And I went into the woods behind the house. We lived right at the edge of town, and it was beautiful. Just slopes of California oak woodlands in the back. And I sat on a rock, and I just waited until a bird showed up. I didn't know how to go birding. I didn't know how to look for birds. I didn't know that birds. I didn't know about fishing. I didn't know that birds made sounds.
Right.
I had never knowingly heard a bird before, so I just sat there and waited until something appeared. And when the bird appeared, it came out of the undergrowth and had this bright rusty sides and this red eye and these white spots on the wings. And the thought in my head was rufous-sided towhee.
So you knew about rufous?
Well, I didn't know that I knew about them.
Oh.
But so I ran home and looked in that book, and that's what it was. I'd read it just by leafing through that book,
I see.
and it had lodged in my brain. And actually, it's funny though. I don't know when I first noticed that birds were making sounds, but I birded all through spring that first year. I was 14. April, May, June. Obviously, birds are singing then, right? And you'd think I would have learned them and noticed them, but the first time I heard a bird, and I thought, what's that? It was the sound way up in the hills. It was December. I think it was early December when I first heard this bizarre sound ringing that I knew I didn't know what it was, and I had to find out. And I eventually got the Peterson tapes for either Christmas or shortly thereafter. My birthday's not long after Christmas. And I listened to them one by one until I found it. It was mountain quail.
I wanted to ask you, how did it change your relationship with your peers, with other teenagers that your friends?
Hugely.
Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, first of all, I knew starting at the age of probably 11, maybe 12, that I was gay. And that kept me from making close relationships with friends. I didn't have any really close friends. I knew that if I was together with a girl, I was supposed to behave a certain way, but I wasn't sure what it was supposed to be like. Guys went out with girls, but I didn't want to go there because I might reveal too much. So I was already not having close friends. But that first spring I started birding. That first bird was the titmouse, the second was the towhee, the third was acorn woodpecker, which were in the oak trees right above them. And I did hear them, I think. And I was in 8th grade, and our classroom door was open to the playground and the trees behind, and I saw this bird fly in, and it landed on the backstop that you could see from our room. And it was an acorn woodpecker that I just learned existed.
This is why you were in class.
And that's why I'm in class. And there was a time when I said something, and the teacher made a fool out of me in front of the students. He ridiculed me for having pointed that out. And that's when I went deep into the closet about being a bird watcher too. I wouldn't dare let anybody know for at least a couple of years that I was watching birds. Doing cross country, one of the pictures I sent you was of my running in cross country at a cross country meet at Clam Beach in Northern California, the big Clam Beach Invitational. And I remember practicing for cross country after school, and the coach would just tell us what route to do. And it's just through beautiful habitat in Northern California. You know the Northern California oak woodlands and poison oak thickets and streams. And that's when I saw my first ruby crowned kinglet, and I was jogging, and I saw the motion. I stopped, and it showed me its crest, and I had to look up and down to make sure there were no other students that were catching up with me, or I was catching up to.
Do you have a running list?
I probably did at the time. I didn't learn about keeping lists until a couple of years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't compile my life list until I was probably 17 or 18.